Have you ever had the feeling that something, no matter how absurd it seems, happened for a greater reason? On the outside, it looked like chaos, but on the inside, there was a hidden meaning. It wasn't logic. It was significance. Carl Jung called this synchronicity. When events are connected not by cause and effect, but by vibration, by meaning, by something that speaks directly to the soul. The universe is not a predictable machine. It's a symbolic field. And you're not here just to understand. You're here to awaken. In this video, we're going to explore why everything that happens to you may not be logical, but is deeply meaningful, and how realizing this can change the way you see destiny, choices, chaos, and purpose. If something in your life doesn't make sense right now, maybe it's because it hasn't become a symbol yet. Let's begin. We're conditioned to look for linear explanations for everything. If something happens, there must be a visible cause, a logical reason, someone responsible. But real life doesn't follow a spreadsheet. It bends, it shifts, it collapses, and is reborn. And often, the most important things that happen to us don't make sense until much later. You look back and realize what seemed like a mistake was a portal. What hurt you shaped you. What led you off course actually placed you exactly where you needed to be. This is what the rational mind can't understand in the present, but the soul recognizes at the right time. Linear logic wants order, but existence works with depth. And deep meaning is rarely found on the surface. It's in the pauses, in the details, in the invisible layers. The truth is, not everything makes sense at first, because the universe doesn't work with explanations. It works with symbolic construction. You are living a story, and like every good story, the meaning is revealed little by little. Rationality asks, why? But the spirit asks, what for? That shift in the question changes everything. That's when logic makes space and meaning begins to act. There's a subtle but powerful difference between living in a world of cause and effect and living in a universe of mirrors. Science teaches us that events follow a predictable logic. But the spirit knows that time is not a straight line. It's a symbolic organism. Everything vibrates, everything resonates. And as Jung said, what you don't make conscious, life brings as destiny. The universe doesn't just react to what you do. It responds to what you are. That's why the signs that appear aren't coincidences. They're messages, reflections of your inner frequency, as if the world around you were a liquid surface, shaped by what you believe, feel, and carry within. This is the language of synchronicity, a bridge between the visible and the invisible. When two events meet without causal explanation, but with a vibrational purpose. Something in you aligns with something in the world, and reality responds. A book falling off the shelf. An unexpected encounter. A phrase you hear at the exact moment you needed it. None of it is random. Everything is a mirror. Everything is a symbol. The mistake is trying to understand with logic what was made to be felt with presence. It's not about finding formulas. It's about sharpening your perception. About stepping out of the victim role and stepping into the role of co-creator. Because when you understand that the universe speaks in meanings, every experience becomes a message. And you stop asking, what's happening to me? And start asking, what is life revealing to me right now? Most people live between two extremes, believing that everything is already written or that everything depends solely on their own decisions. But what if both are right and incomplete? Spiritual truth doesn't live in the extremes. It dances in the space between them. Free will exists, but not as total autonomy. It exists as a field of choice within a broader script. As if the soul had drawn a map before birth, but left blank spaces for you to fill in with awareness. Destiny, then, wouldn't be a fixed path but a melody. And free will, the way you choose to dance to that music. There are meetings that needed to happen. There are pains the soul asked to experience. But how you respond to those encounters, that is choice. That is power. This is where the universe tests your frequency. Will you repeat the pattern or transform the cycle? Will you follow the old script or write a new scene? Nietzsche said that the human being is the only animal that can make a promise to itself about the future. That promise is the soul's pact with its own evolution. And every detour, every apparent contradiction, every unexpected event may simply be life's script guiding you back to where you belong. It's not about controlling everything. It's about remembering that there is a greater intelligence guiding through meaning, not logic. In the end, destiny is not a place. It's a state of consciousness you choose to inhabit. And every true vibrational choice brings you closer to it. What we call chaos may simply be divine intelligence acting beyond our understanding. There are moments when everything seems out of place. Nothing fits, nothing follows the plan. But with time, looking back, we realize it was exactly there, in the lack of control, that the soul grew the most. Life isn't straight, curves. And in those curves lives the wisdom that a direct path can't offer. It's in the interruptions, the mistakes, and the losses that we often find the missing piece. Like in the domino effect, a small, seemingly irrelevant event triggers a sequence of transformations that only later reveal their greatness. Chaos theory teaches that the slight flap of a wing can cause a storm on the other side of the world. Spiritually, this reminds us that nothing is insignificant. Every choice, every move, every silence has an invisible impact. And what today feels like injustice may only be the beginning of a rebuilding, a blessing in disguise, a detour that saved you from something you didn't even know you needed to avoid. It takes humility to accept that not everything reveals itself at the right time. Sometimes meaning comes later. Sometimes it comes in silence. But it comes. And when it comes, there's no doubt, chaos has a purpose too. It's not the enemy of order. It's its womb. Because it is there, in the breakdown of control, that the greatest revelations are born. There's a curious phenomenon that strongly echoes on the spiritual path. Many of the things that transform us the most began as a mistake. The Nova effect, inspired by the game No More Heroes, represents exactly that, when something unexpected or seemingly negative triggers a chain of events that leads us to a place better than the one we had planned. On the surface, it looks like bad luck. But deep down, it's the universe taking a shortcut, trading comfort for expansion. How many times has a loss made space for something greater? How many times has a failure pushed you to discover a strength you didn't know you had? This is how life speaks when you're not listening with your heart. It breaks down plans to reveal new paths. In this context, a mistake isn't a failure. It's a tool, an invitation to step out of the narrative of control and into the narrative of trust. Because sometimes what seemed like a delay was protection. What seemed like rejection was redirection. And what seemed like the end was just the soul closing one cycle so it could be reborn. The greatest act of wisdom is not avoiding mistakes, but learning to listen to what they're trying to reveal. Life doesn't change because the past changes. It changes because your perspective does. There's a subtle and powerful art in reinterpreting your own experiences. It's when you stop seeing your story as a collection of events and start seeing it as a symbolic journey. A soul's passage through landscapes that once seemed random, but now reveal a sacred storyline. Every fall, every encounter, every silence. All of it can be redefined when you recognize the hidden value behind the experience. It's not about denying the pain. It's about looking at it with new eyes, asking, what was this part of my story trying to teach me? What in me needed to be broken so something new could emerge? This process isn't rational. It's alchemical. It's like turning memory into wisdom, pain into direction, the past into power. When you begin to retell your own story with awareness, something shifts in the vibration. The victim makes room for the creator, and the chaos of the past reorganizes into a narrative of healing. Nietzsche said that one must have chaos within to give birth to a dancing star. This phrase isn't just poetic, it's spiritual. There comes a moment in every seeker's journey when the ground disappears. Old references no longer serve. Certainties collapse. That is the abyss. But the abyss is not punishment. It is initiation. It is the space where the ego dissolves so the true self can emerge, where the mask falls and the soul begins to breathe on its own. Nietzsche wasn't only speaking philosophically. He was speaking of spiritual courage, the courage to face yourself without excuses, to walk through the shadows without running, to become who you are, even if it costs the old version of yourself. This process is solitary, but it isn't empty, because the deeper you go, the more quietly truth reveals itself. Becoming who you are is not a destination. It's a daily practice, commitment to authenticity, to wholeness, to the freedom of not hiding anymore. And those who go through the abyss come out the other side changed. Not because they learned more, but because they lost the fear of feeling. True awakening isn't about knowing. It's about being. Every person who crossed your path, every rupture, every impossible choice, all of it formed a unique, unrepeatable story. And in that story, nothing is wasted. There is intention. Like in ancient tales, pain prepares the hero. Mistakes teach the way. Chaos reveals the center. Nothing is random, not even what once seemed meaningless. When you begin to see your life as a sacred narrative, something shifts. You stop chasing control and start seeking alignment with your soul. The moral of your story isn't in the final words. It's in how you choose to walk now, even without knowing the next scene. Because deep down, the mission isn't about reaching a destination. It's about living with such meaning that every step becomes sacred. And then, even without understanding everything you feel, the universe never led you through logic. It always guided you through the heart. It doesn't matter how many explanations you've gathered, how many theories made sense, how many answers seemed right. What remains is what makes your soul go quiet inside. What vibrates, what resonates, what moves you without needing a reason. The universe never needed to be logical. It only needs to be true. And truth almost always speaks through symbols, through encounters, through feelings that don't fit into words, but fit into the soul. You are not lost. You are being guided. Everything that once seemed random slowly reveals itself as part of a purpose. And you realize it wasn't disorder. It was preparation. If there's something in your life right now that still doesn't make sense, don't force it. Be still. Breathe. Observe. Maybe it's not time to understand. Maybe it's time to feel. And trust that what is a question today will one day become an answer. Because the universe doesn't move by logic. It moves by meaning. May you find peace in the curve, courage in the chaos, and meaning where there was once only silence. If this video touched something in you, allow others to find it too. Like, share, and subscribe. May your path be guided not by certainty, but by presence. And may your journey be light, even when it's deep.